A video camera mount for a Myford ML7R lathe. In this video I show a very simple way to fit a camera mount to the base of a Myford ML7R lathe, using the threaded hole that is already there in the chip tray at the back. Videoing operations on this Myford in the position that it is in the workshop is very difficult. With the camera on the tripod, it is in the way. I cannot get to the parts I need to get to, and I'm constantly knocking the tripod as I'm working on the lathe. So thanks to a friend of mine who gave me some parts and this bit that I already had, the camera is secured to this part, and in turn the camera holder fixes to the rest of the assembly. Here it is. This camera mount, like a lot of camera things, is designed to fit onto a spigot. So all I need to do is make a spigot that screws into this hole which is on the chip tray. You may be wondering, why is there a hole in the chip tray at this point? Well, don't forget this is a lathe that would normally be on a stand with a potential coolant service in the stand. I don't believe that using an industrial coolant in a home workshop is a very good idea, so I don't use it. But the main reason I can't use coolant is because I don't have the stand. My lathe sits on some kneeling pads which are made of very high density foam. And before any machinist comment, my lathe runs very true on these kneeling pads because it's not bolted down to anything. Looking at this hole, it is 1/2 inch in diameter, and I do believe that the thread is 1/4 BSP. Here I'm checking using a tap. This isn't 1/4 BSP, it's 1/4 by 26, and it starts to go into the hole and tightens up, which is a sure sign that it is not the correct thread. When I did this using a 1/4 BSP tap, it went into the hole much further. If I remember rightly, 1/4 BSP is 19 threads per inch. This is a shot of a lathe operation using my tripod leaned up against the workbench. This is no good at all. I keep kicking the tripod and it moves about. As you can see, the image is a bit wobbly. The main problem is the tripod is so entirely in the way of the operations that I'm doing. This is what happens when I use the tailstock. I'm accidentally, on purpose, knocking the tripod, and as you can see, it's no good at all. Once the new mount is fitted, it will be fitted to the lathe directly, so it will be quite difficult to knock it. And the good thing is, if the entire lathe moves, which it does periodically when I'm tightening chucks because it's sat on foam pads, well, it won't matter because the camera will move too. I found this piece of steel in the workshop. It was a piece that I tested a knurling tool on, and I don't know what it is, but it's really hard stuff. I have quite a lot of small pieces of steel in the workshop, so why did I have to pick this one? Anyway, I'm not going back up there, so I will use this. When I try the camera mounting fitting on the machined end of this piece of steel, it's too small. I need to reduce this side of the piece of metal in two ways. One is it's too long, so it needs shortening, and it needs turning down to 1/2 inch in diameter so I can thread it 1/4 BSP. I'm setting the micrometer the quick way by using a 1/2 inch diameter drill bit. Note to self, it is time to buy some bifocal glasses. Reading the vernier increments is now starting to get difficult. As I've already shown, this piece of metal has already been turned, and I need to reduce the length of it and the diameter. At first it appeared to turn okay, and the chippings came off in one continuous swirl, but after a while, when I took deeper cuts, that was not the case. Eventually I reduced the diameter of the piece of steel down to what you see here. This piece of steel is really strange. When I cut just right, it's okay. When I put too much pressure on it, look how the chippings come off. This looks horrible. It may have been something to do with the tool. These are very small lathe tools, and Myford ML7R is not a very big lathe, and I don't think you're supposed to put quite as much pressure on it as I'm doing here. The lathe didn't break, but the tool tip soon wore out. I have two other lathes in the main workshop. One is a Boxford lathe, and the other is a quite large one called a Smart & Brown 1024, which I will be selling shortly because I never use it. If any of my patrons are interested, it's a really good machine. It's right by the workshop door, which opens fully, and using a high ab on a Ford Transit, It just lifts out of the workshop and onto the vehicle. The last time I moved it, I used a man called Simon Watkins. I can provide his details if you need them. Anyway, back to this job. I'm still working on the Myford ML7R in my home workshop, which is built onto the kitchen. After turning one end of this steel bar to 1/2 inch diameter for a short distance, I used a digital caliper to see how deep the hole was in the fitting. And again, this needed shortening, so it's back to the same old job, but this time the tool is fitted with a new tip and it's cutting a lot better. I didn't want to grip the steel bar in the chuck by the 1/2 inch part. I thought that it possibly may not support the work, so I did it in 2 stages like this. I machined part of the way down to exactly the size that I needed to fit into the hole in the main mounting. And okay, I got 1 or 2 rings on the work, but it's not important, nobody's ever going to see it. The next thing to do is to turn the part around in the chuck to thread the 1/2 inch diameter part, and I'm currently threading it, shown here, using a hand die holder. In the end I engaged back gear because it was very difficult. And don't forget, I'm using the existing camera leaned up against the workbench, and this was moving all over the place. Another reason for making this mounting. What are we looking at here? These are the foam pads that the lathe sits on. They really are good, the gardening kneeling pads. Initially I screwed the part that I'd made into the hole in the base of the lathe by doing it this way, by tightening the fitting onto the shaft, but later on I drilled a cross hole and used a Tommy bar. And here you can see the principle. The camera that I normally use in the workshop is a Canon and it's quite large. The one that I use in the main workshop or for any other small jobs is a Sony AX53. I really like this camera. I do prefer it to the Canon. And here it is. The sound of course has been recorded by this camera. And what I'm doing is just playing with some bits of brass and a parting tool. So now I'm really looking forward to the machining operations. I did find them to be a pain. If you look how this works, the camera is well out of the way of anything I'm doing. This image has been filmed by the Canon XF400 camcorder, which is very good, but the battery doesn't last hardly any time at all. It's a real pain. But now, as I don't have to move the Canon, I can leave it permanently connected to its own power supply. And that is it for this video. It will make my job a lot easier. Stay safe, stay healthy, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.